gentlemen, welcome to Attack Wrap here on Rogers TV. I'm your host, Nick Kennedy. Today we don't have a studio guest. Rather, we've got a Zoom guest, which we'll get to in just a moment. Before we do some Player of the Week announcements, your Owen Sound Attack Player of the Week. Now, of course, they're not playing this week or for a few more weeks, but your Owen Sound Player of the Week, we're going to give an honorary call out to Colby Barlow for his first pro game with the Manitoba Moose. Manitoba falling there to the Iowa Wild on Saturday, unfortunately. I believe splitting that decision on the weekend. And then your other Owen Sound Attack honorary Player of the Week going to Carter George, who I believe just today it was publicly announced that he has in fact made the Team Canada World U18. So congratulations to Carter. We're really excited for him, as well as Colby. Connor making his pro debut last week, picking up a goal for the San Diego Gulls, getting last week's Player of the Week. So congratulations to all those guys moving on. I'd like to introduce our guest as well for today. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome General Manager Dale DeGray.
Nick, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Well, Dale, you know, I had the coaches on last week, and we were chatting a little bit about what it's like to be a coach and how it can be a pretty thankless position. And I got to imagine that is only eclipsed perhaps by how thankless I think being a general manager might be in the OHL. And I'm wondering, how do you manage being in that role that just naturally will always face more criticism than it does praise?
Well, there's no question. The praise side of it is just something that maybe my wife gives me. But it's, you know what? I signed up for this a long time ago. I mean, even when you're a player, you know, I often refer to, I think Gordie Howe said at one time, whether the fans are cheering for you or booing you, at least they know you're out on the ice. And it's I don't know, like, I just think if you give everything you've got, whether you're playing or coaching or managing, if you're giving everything you've got, then really, yeah, I guess people can ask for more, but if that's all you've got to give, and hopefully it's enough over the, you know, test of time, it's enough. But, you know, I often say it, and I know you've heard me say it before, everybody knows where I stand, right? So if they want to pat me on the back or kick me in the butt, they know where I'm at. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, this year, quite frankly, I took a few kicks in the butt, and that's just the way that it goes. I'll take the good with the bad, and I'll move on, and hopefully everybody's better for it.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate that candidness, the honesty there. I'm wondering for you, I mean, there's lots of roles, and one of the roles that we haven't really gotten to talk a whole lot about on this show, we've had players, we've had staff, we've had coaches, general managers, but there's also management that's involved, and you see across the NHL that they're involved to differing degrees. And I'm wondering, for you as a general manager, let's say like with the OHL entry draft, right? The draft we just had this past weekend. Are management kind of involved in coming up with a game plan? Do they sort of impart a vision onto you, or is that one of those things where they say, you know, Dale, we trust you, you know, tell us what the vision for the team is, and they kind of give you the keys to the castle for that?
Well, I will guarantee you that the owners don't give me the keys to the castle. First off, okay, but yeah, do they let me run the hockey side of it? Yeah, they do, and I think it's taken years for them to, you know, really, for me to garner the trust that you know, that they give me. And but it's not so much even just that. I mean, we've got scouts and you know, Brian Tico and Sean LaFortune are guys that I trust on, and I see really on a weekly basis and talk to on a weekly basis. Chris Cameron out in Ottawa. These guys do a great job at going out and seeing guys and putting in the reports, and all I'm kind of the keeper of the safe, I guess, because it's all comes to me in my computer, and we go over it, and that's how we formulate a list, and we formulate who we like one player over the other, and And, I can tell you from my standpoint, I was mentored by Rick Dudley, who's a part of the Florida Panthers right now. And one of the things that he'd said to me before, although I'm going to be a hypocrite if you ask me about the right player in this draft, and that is, you know what, don't draft somebody you've never seen. And so I try to get out. I can tell you this year I've probably seen upwards of 230 games, but Sean Teagle's probably seen 200 more than that. So you get a good comparison. The more games you see, the more people you see, or kids you see, the more comparisons you have, the better the comparisons are. And that's why you have to get out and see guys, because if you're going to compare, player A to player B, you better make sure that you're doing it with the right information.
Excellent. We try to ask some hard-hitting questions on here, and so I think the hardest question I have for you, the hardest question I got for you, do you know who is in Cubby?
Isn't Cubby a bear?
I get, you know what? Maybe there's nobody in Cubby. Cubby just is.
I have no idea what you're talking about. First off, it's not my department. Okay. So I can get away with it that way. But I thought just Cubby was real.
Excellent.
Maybe he was the season ticket holder.
I am curious about that. As the general manager, obviously there's a front office staff that does a ton of work, and they put together these great productions and schedule the Timbits, which are sometimes like our favorite things to watch, and all these kind of things. Like, are you in charge of that sort of at like the highest level, or is there somebody who's kind of the general manager, shall we say, of the front office?
I think Greg Hodnut does a great job, and I'm glad that he looks after it, and I have nothing to do with that. I just can't imagine it. And of course, I think everybody knows I'm not there in Owen Sound on a day-to-day basis anyways. So it would be quite difficult for me to do that, especially through a Zoom call like this. Who knows? Maybe you could be in that bear costume. I don't know.
Well, I think you might be revealing more than we're ready to reveal on this show. So let's move on, and we'll take just a quick look at this season. And there was a lot of change this year. You had to face a lot of adversity as a general manager. You hired a new assistant coach, then you hired a goalie coach, and then that goalie coach gets taken by the NHL, and you need to hire another goalie coach, and then more things with coaching, and then your star player goes down to injury for a huge chunk of the season. This was not an easy year, I'm sure, to be a general manager, and still in the face of all that adversity, you put together a roster that is clearly, it has gripped the hearts of all of the fans in Grey Bruce. As a general manager, do you get used to this kind of adversity, or was this maybe a unique year in terms of change?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think adversity you get every year, and it just comes in different shapes and different colors. And, when you start out the season, you don't know what's going to be thrown at you, whether it's, you look at the year before, we had so many sicknesses and injuries, and we were playing games with 16 skaters and 2 goalies and 15 skaters and 2 goalies. And then, so, I felt bad, and I apologized to some of the players this year because we kept extra players. We kept extra players this year, and we only had 1 5-game suspension and 1 player that was sick for 3 or 5 days. So, boy, it's difficult to, to pinpoint or foresee, what's going to be thrown your way. But it's all about just how you deal with it and kind of roll with it, and you still try to make people accountable. And if you have to make changes, you have to be willing to make those changes. And listen, sometimes decisions you make are incredibly difficult, but I say to kids sometimes, and you got to put your big boy pants on and make those decisions, and they've got to go out and make those plays. You just have to do it, and hopefully at the end, you do things for the right reasons, and we're all better for those.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, you talk about making hard decisions, and how much does how difficult is that? I mean, oftentimes I think fans, they look at players and sometimes they just see the numbers, or sometimes they just see the stat lines. And then, you've got, yourself in the position of general manager, where you actually get to know these guys as people. You get to know them as players, and they're not just numbers anymore, but they have lives attached to them, and school and families and all of these extra things that go along with just, dealing with a room full of teenage guys and young adult men. Does that make decisions like, moving or acquiring new players, or drafting or graduating players, that much more difficult?
Well, I mean, here since you brought it up last there, the graduating part of it. I mean, this year was special, to have 3 5-year players brought from within to play 5 years, and not just, Nick, like not just play, like really, really contribute on the ice, off the ice, helping out, whether it's on the power play or like having some input. Like those guys, that just doesn't happen. And that will be the one thing that will be really, really missed moving into next year, is having those 3 guys that are, they're pillars to the team, and even in the community, as guys that have been there for 5 years. But you're right. I mean, you get to know them. I mean, often we just gone through the draft. I've met a number of these families. You visit, you meet the families, you meet the brothers and sisters, you talk to them on the phone, you get a good idea of where they're really at, maybe where the boy's at in the family dynamics. Maybe sometimes they say, hey, we don't know how he's going to be out on his own next year, or sometimes it's, in Pierce's Bowie's case, he's kind of all ready to go. I mean, he can be out there on his own today, but you don't know that all the time. And so there's a lot of circumstances, you get homesickness, but we try to deal with it all. And but I think that's the big thing, is really the family dynamics. And then when you have to move somebody, you have to, for me, I have to make sure I call the agent, then I talk to the player. Sometimes I talk to the parents ahead of time, and let's be honest, sometimes it's a welcome move. And those are easy because you're probably doing the right thing for the player to move him to another team where he's going to have maybe a better chance. And a lot of times you do that for that reason. And you like, because I'm not here to stand in front of anybody from getting to where they want to be. Sometimes it's just not as fast as maybe they want to see it through. And you can't, unfortunately, make things happen all the time.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate that. And something that I think I've noticed in that answer is just kind of how personal you are with these players, and having that approachableness to you. I mean, mentioning before, people know where you stand in the games, and something that I always want to do on the show, I want to leave time to be able to brag for you guys on your behalf about you guys. So I'm going to do that. And I know it's embarrassing, and that's all right. And, I remember a point in this season, there was a practice, and it was right around the time where there was some changes going on behind the bench. And, you had come over and sat beside me that day, actually, at practice, and just asked me how the show was going, and chatted to me about how it was being at practice and whatnot. Not for a second asking, well, what are you talking about, what are you how are you going to approach this situation, or anything like that. And it's probably your busiest day of the year, having to deal with all the paperwork and all that. And then I see you get up and you walk over and you chat with some of the guys who like to come and watch practice from the fan clubs and whatnot. And I'm wondering, for me, I mean, that was special. It means a lot, right? But for you, have you always been personable and approachable, or is that a skill that you have developed over the many years of being a general manager that has helped you sort of in that management journey?
Well, I think I think most people would say that I'm more personable. I don't mind talking. I think most people would say that. I guess you have to know when enough's enough, right? But I think it's only helped me in the role that I have. And it's listen, I've always been a believer that if somebody has the time for me to ask me questions and has interest in what I'm doing or what the team is doing, then quite honestly, Nick, I've got to, offer up some time to answer some questions. So I've always been that way. When I played, I would be there right till the very last person left the building. I often stayed in the building right to the very end with the trainers. And if people were waiting or if it was autographs, I just think, it's a privilege to be a part of a sport, to be able to make a living, and for me to be doing this for so long. If what I give back is a little bit of time and answer some questions, it's not nearly probably even enough, but I've got no problem with that.
Well, I appreciate that. And for all of you fans watching at home, there's a way for you to get involved, not necessarily in on this interview, but behind me, if I lean this way, you'll see that we've got a nice autographed jersey here from the Owen Sound Attack, one of these lovely white away jerseys. And if you want to get your hands on this exact jersey that's behind me with all these signatures on it, you can actually text in or comment a question. You'll see the number there on screen, 519-270-1382, or email mark.perry@rci.rogers.com if you'd like to get involved on this giveaway. So make sure you guys text or email in any questions that you have. We'll have one more episode after this where we'll bring in the broadcast team and we'll try to walk through a couple of these questions as well. So make sure you guys get those thumbs ready if you want to win this wonderful jersey behind me. Great logo, great signatures. The white jersey just looks clean. So you want one of these in your closet. Dale, to kind of wrap up the season in review, so to speak, there were so many fantastic moments from this season. I mean, we saw Denny's 8-point game. We saw Carter's 50-save shutout. Maybe that one's bittersweet, I guess. But we saw Sed's breaking franchise records, and of course that graduation ceremony for the 3 overagers, and just an amazing way to see Denny as well get his 100th career goal in the OHL immediately following that. Do you have a personal favorite moment or highlight as you look back on this year, one that you'd want to add to your book?
Well, you touched on so many great moments, quite honestly, throughout the season. The season that was, maybe even a little bit disappointing, but you do try to find those, bright spots. And I think I've already touched base on it. The bright spot for me was, being able to acknowledge the 3 overages that meant so much to, the community, to the team. I don't know if you're going to have, you might have, 3 guys from start to finish again. I don't know if you're going to have 3 guys that are just that valuable to the team. I mean, they were leaders in every category that we would have had. You just don't fall into that very often, and we did. And it would have been nice for them to go out in a different fashion. But you know what? The one thing I know is in this game, there's, you play to win, and the problem is that whoever wins, there's usually on the other side somebody who loses, and that happens. That's it. That's sport, right? But that would be my highlight, was being able to acknowledge them and send them off with a couple of gifts, and but just to see how well they did and how much they've grown as from kids to young men, quite honestly, and really, really matured over their 5 years.
Amazing. I mean, so valuable to the team. And I think, as we as we look back at the impact that these overage players had, and think about, who could have that impact for us in the future. I know there's a lot of excitement around last year's draft class, and watching how they all of a sudden have just sort of come into their own, especially through that Saginaw series and just before as well. And what an outstanding series that was to watch. I know it didn't end the way we want it to, the way Darren put it last week. Coach Rumble, he said only one team gets to win their last game. So, very true. And in such a deep league and in such a strong conference like this was, we were bound to have a high caliber matchup there in the first round. And, I think that one of the highlights I saw in that series, of course, Owen Sound just getting better and stronger throughout that series. But then watching guys like Connor Smith, when the puck comes back to Owen Sound, it's behind our net, and he just lays out a massive hit. Then Owen Beck, the next game, goes to try to Michigan, and Connor just absolutely plasters him to the ice. And what a huge pickup that was. I mean, a fantastic acquisition, of course. And does it give you a little bit of excitement to watch guys like that you've traded for, that you've actually kind of put this time and effort and kind of stuck your neck out for, to bring in and watch them just make plays that alter the course of a game?
Well, that's the whole idea, right? I mean, let's be honest. That's the whole idea. You look at the big picture. You look at what you have. How do you get better? What can you do to get better? What's the cost of that? And we felt that what we were doing was, we were going to add two pieces that, quite honestly, in that trade, particularly, with Connor and Sam, that they were going to be able to add to what we were doing right now. And they both did. I mean, Sam McHugh I think he got 23 goals or something on the year. Looking for him, come back, should he get 30? Like, why can't he get 30 goals, right? He's on the central draft list right now. So we'll see what all happens moving forward. You mentioned about Connor going to San Diego, scoring his first game. I actually texted him a couple of days later, and I said, I'm going to tell you right now, the game's not that easy. It just doesn't happen like that. So, but yeah, both really good pickups, and you're right. And you talked about the playoffs. That's what playoffs are for, and that's why, for me, stating that we've been in the playoffs so many years in a row, that's when you really get to see who wants to play, who wants to dig down and be a part of, trying to maybe be the underdog and make that happen, or make the right play at the right situation, or like you mentioned about Connor, he really raised his game through those 4 games, and he was a force. And quite honestly, there was guys that were just terrified to go in the corners or try to even go get the puck when he was out on the ice. And that's something that hopefully when he comes back, that's what he's going to bring night in, night out. And I can tell you, he will have way more time with the puck if that's how he starts the season, because guys just will not want to have any part of it.
Absolutely.
I mean, talking about forces to be reckoned with, I think maybe it's about time that we take a look at some of our future forces to be reckoned with here in our new 2024 draft class. So I'd love to just kind of get your thoughts on, maybe the first few picks here. And we'll start with our round 1 pickup in Pierce Buoy, left wing coming out of the Toronto Marlboros, U16, 5'10", 145 pounds. I'm sure, I think he turns actually 16 tomorrow. So a preemptive happy birthday there to our first round pick, Pierce Buoy. What was it about this kid that just stood out to you? I mean, he's almost 2 points a game with the Marlboros there. What was it about this kid?
Listen, first off, he will make sure that that he's 150 pounds. Okay. So that's for starters, but I mean, he is dynamic. He is fast. He's skilled. He's tenacious. There's really nothing not to like. He back checks. He's good in his own end. I mean, but he's he's incredibly gifted. He's got great skills. He's gonna be a guy that I think he's going to be able to bring people out of their seats with the way and the speed and the skill that he plays with. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting to see him late August and September, and then get him rolling as fast as we can.
Excellent. Well, I know I'm excited to see him play. I know there's quite a few people that were excited to see a pickup like that. Coming in round 2 there, we've got Mason Roy, a left D man coming out of the Halton Hurricanes, wears an A on his jersey, 6 feet. I mean, we've got 160 pounds listed, maybe more by now. And here's the thing too, is that he's not 16 until July 15th. Like, he's still just a 15-year-old kid. He's got a lot of growing left, even potentially before next season. Is that something that you guys take into account when looking at these guys?
At times we do. But with Mason, I mean, he's a very good skater. He's got good puck skills. He moves the puck very effectively. He sees the ice. He can he runs their power play. There's a lot of upside here. He's got good size for a 15-year-old. We were excited. I'm going to be honest with you. To tell the truth here, we traded for a second-round pick, a late second-round pick. He's the one that we actually hoped we would be able to get. Now, we didn't know that all that shenanigans was going to be going on with kids going tendering to the USHL. We were actually holding our breath when it got into the 30s, because we were wondering how many defensemen would go. But fingers crossed, and hopefully we were living right, because we got the player we wanted at 41.
Well, that's excellent. Now, we've got about a minute and a half here before break, and so I just want to quickly run through our first third round pick there with Ethan Kindry, also out of the Halton Hurricanes, also wears an A on his jersey, 5'9", 166 pounds, a heavy kid for being 5'9". Here's what I want to highlight. He has almost the exact same points in almost the exact same games played as Pierce Bowie. Is this like getting a first rounder in the third round?
Well, here's what I'm going to tell you, and you can tell me if it's like a first rounder or not. He might be Ethan Burrows. So that's what I see. I see a real good 200-foot power play penalty kill guy in a year and a half from now. He's going to be very accountable. The coach is going to be a guy that's going to be able to look down and see him and kick him in the pants and say, your turn again, your turn again, your turn again. He's that reliable. He's a warrior, this kid. He just likes to play hard, and he's got a lot of skill.
Excellent. Well,
I mean, if this is any indication for what's coming for the Owen Sound Attack, I think this next season is going to be one that I absolutely do not want to miss. I'm sure you won't want to miss it either if you're watching at home. Season's tickets just opened up today for purchase. Check those out on the website. Don't forget to text in. We're going to head to break, and we'll be right back with more questions for General Manager Dale DeGray.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Here we are in Canada, where Canada's about to celebrate our talent, our people. This moment is changing your life forever. I promise you. $1 million. This is the gateway to your dreams coming true.
I'm Mayor Ian Body. If you want to understand the decisions being made about your community, please join us on Rogers TV Cable 53 on Mondays at 5:30 p.m. or online at rogerstv.com to watch the Owen Sound City Council. You can also read our agendas and reports or watch replays of meetings at owensound.ca. We hope you'll stay informed and we hope you'll tune in. Thanks.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Attack Wrap here on Rogers TV. I'm your host, Nick Kennedy, joined today by Owen Sound Attack General Manager Dale DeGray. Dale, we were just talking about third-round pick Ethan Kindry. Now, also in the third round, Owen Sound with 2 third-round picks, picking up Elliot Arnett, a left defenseman out of Barrie, same team that we know Jake Crawford played for before coming to the Owen Sound Attack. Big kid, 6 feet, 182 pounds. I mean, is it more than just size with this kid? Is he like the elite player that we've heard that he can be?
Well, he's a solid two-way guy. He keeps his game very simple, but his game is on the physicality side. He likes to keep people on their toes. He's a very good open ice hitter, but you know, in our first 4 picks, we were hoping to get two defensemen, 2 forwards. We achieved that, and it let us, it let us go down the road and maybe look at some different things. But he will be a guy that'll make people accountable in the D zone and through the open ice in the neutral zone. And he'll add to the sort of secondary offense, but offense is not going to be his forte.
No, I think that's excellent to hear. I mean, we've had a lot of physicality on this team. Last year, we saw, Teus Jordan laying out big hits. We saw Connor Smith in the playoffs with huge hits. I mean, Jackson Stewart always looking for an open ice hit, basically turning into a human cannonball. So that's great to hear about, maintaining that physicality.
Seems to be sort of coming back a little bit into the NHL. It looked like it might have been leaving for a little while, but great to see that as a priority again. One pick I'd love us to take a minute here to talk about in round 6, picking up, and you'll have to help me with the pronunciation here, but is it Jet Kawaja?
Yes.
Excellent. So a left-handed defenseman off the Toronto Junior Canadiens, same team that first-round pick from last year, now in Peterborough, Nico Addy came from. Jet standing at 5'11". That way I won't feel too short. That's great. 157 pounds. So a light kid, but I mean, does that translate to speed and skill perhaps?
Yeah, I think, Jet was one of those players that I talked about earlier on that has some interest in playing in the USHL, and he was one of the early kids that tendered to go down there. He's arguably one of the top 2 or 3 defensemen, depending on who you talk to, in this whole draft. So at some point we talked about that, and what do you do, and where do you really look at some of these kids that are looking at the US? You can't let them go through the draft and be undrafted. So I think pretty much every one of them was selected at some point, and we decided, in the 6th round, that's going to be a spot for us to look at one of those players. And as I talked to Jet and his father on the phone, for me, it's just a matter of, hey, if we're plan B at this time, that's fine. But I wanted to make sure that if he's going to go plan B at some point, Owen Sound's going to be where he has to land. And I think if he ever did land in Owen Sound, I think the fans would be incredibly impressed, because he's a remarkable defenseman. He's got, and he might even be bigger than, he's almost 6 feet, but just super, super skills, great feet, and really has a head that goes with all that really makes him one of those special defenders.
Excellent.
Something that I'm sure we'd love to see again, like you said, if he happens to make his way up to the Scenic City. It sounds like he could really put on a show for us. The last pick I'd love us just to take a moment to look at here, and we may have time to look at more later, is we got a bit of a hometown kid here on the draft list, coming in round 14 in Ian Nerton, also playing for the Barrie Junior Colts U16, 5'5", so I think our shortest draft pick in the draft, 129 pounds, coming out of Owen Sound, of course, playing with the junior attack many years ago, playing with the Barrie Junior Colts this past year. What made you guys look at Ian?
You know what? Ian was playing on a very, very good team in Barrie. And, you know, you often, when you watch one of those real good teams, and I think they had pretty much every player on that team got drafted, I believe, except for maybe one. But kids can get overlooked. And I often go to some of those teams and I sort of, you know, you can see the stars, obviously. And you want to look sort of peripherally and see who's on the outside that might be doing really well, but you don't pay them any attention because they're not that guy. And Ian is one of those guys. He's smaller. He's got great feet. He's very, very smart player. Very smart player with very good skills. So you know what? It's one of those things. We'll bring him to camp and we'll see. The rest is going to be up to him. The rest will be up to him. But I will make sure that you are aware, and I don't know if you are or not, but Owen Barfoot, he is another local player.
Excellent.
Yeah, another local player, played for the North York Rangers, and you know, put up, I must probably be close to, well, 50 points, I think. Real good player on another player on a really good team. And Owen's one of those players, probably known by his coach as a defensive type player, but no, had a really good year and happy to select him. Quite honestly, really surprised to get him in 13th round. Really surprised.
Yeah.
That you find a 6-foot centerman close to 200 pounds that late in a draft. So an excellent pickup. And if either of these boys, Barfoot or Nerton, play with any of that Grey Bruce swagger that people just seem to have up here, then I think they may turn into some pretty good players. So that's exciting to hear. I'm wondering, you know, the draft room, we saw a few social media posts and stuff like that. The draft room looked busy. It looked like there were a lot of folks in there. And I'm wondering, like, are there unsung heroes of an OHL draft event like that? I mean, obviously people go, okay, well, it's all Dale DeGray. He's the general manager. He drafts everybody. But there's got to be, I mean, we know there's scouts involved. Are the coaches involved in something like that? Are there more voices in the mix?
No, coaches are usually not involved. It's hard to have, you know, it's hard to have people, and I think you can get into trouble if you know, even sometimes coach and general managers can probably find themselves in this where they haven't seen enough of the kids and they haven't seen the player enough to really have a valued. Now they'll tell you they have a valued opinion, but a truly value opinion where they can compare it or you know, really know what that player is about. But as far as you know, really what goes on, I think the day before, when there was myself and Sean LaFortune and Brian Tickle and Chris Cameron, I've got no problem saying that there was a couple of players that we argue about. And you've got to be strong. And if you're gonna tell me to draft somebody over somebody else, you need to have a valid opinion and back it up. And we did have a couple of sessions where it went pretty good, which I think I love. And you know, but like I said, you've got to, if you're gonna push somebody, you better be able to back it up with points to make me think. And it that's what happened.
Excellent.
I won't tell you on who though.
No problem. No, we're not going to ask that. Don't worry. I think some of our best episodes this year
of Attack Rap have been with guys like Carter George and Jake Crawford. And I noticed that both of those guys had made an appearance at the draft. And I'm wondering, like, how much of a role, you talk about guys like Jet, who they're looking at the U.S. development program and all sorts of stuff like that. I'm wondering, how much do current players help or impact other players' decisions to sign here or to look elsewhere, to consider NCAA and stuff like that?
Well, I think for the most part, our players, a lot of them will reach out to some of the kids and just to say, hey, congratulations, welcome, it'll be great to see you, whether it's at the barbecue or at camp. But that sort of stuff goes a long way. And I think the parents have a good understanding of what that means. So, having the two kids there was kind of cool, right? We've done it before where we were in the playoffs, I remember. And then we were doing the draft and the bus pulled in one day. And of course they unpacked the bus and they get everything ready. And of course, some of them come over to the draft room and I would never in a million years tell them that they can't come in. And I remember Aiden Dudas made a selection for us. It wasn't his selection. It was our selection. He just punched it all in and went through it. He thought that was pretty cool.
That's great to hear. I mean, a huge draft party, too, going on next door. It looked like you had, I don't know what that would have been, maybe 50-plus people crammed into a room watching the draft on a laptop plugged into a TV. There were snacks going. People were making their own predictions. I'm wondering, for you as the general manager of a team that, I mean, for better or for worse, has some of the most passionate fans, maybe in the league. Does that get you excited? Is that like almost intimidating, having a room of people right next door who, chances are haven't seen any of these players play? Or is that almost endearing with the fans who they're just there because they want to support this new generation of attack players?
Well, and that's exactly what it is. It's certainly not intimidating because as we talked about earlier on, I've got no problem, talking to them at any time. I just think it's fantastic. We had our first 4 picks from day one. They all came up on Saturday. Every one of them went in and addressed the attack pack and took questions. Basically for as long as they wanted to ask them. I think they were all excited that the kids would come over and speak with them, especially for that long. But I think that's pretty cool that the families and the boys will come up and they will just see, what that's about. And I try to explain to them, we have the best fans in the league. And when you get 15% of your community to come to a game, that's pretty special. And that doesn't go unnoticed with me. And I make sure on my speeches when I bring parents up and through, that is part of it. And every one of them would say to themselves, when they really think of it, 15%, you step back and you go, man, that is impressive.
Absolutely. And one of the drawing characteristics has just been the character of the team that has been built here. It's a team that you want to love. It's a team you want to cheer for. And a huge part of that have been the OAs that we've talked a lot about them, but who have come in, they've spent their whole career here. We got to honor them and send them off. And guys like Ethan are already playing pro. I mean, he's down in Iowa with the Heartland now in the ECHL. And so congratulations to Ethan. And I know we're waiting on bated breath to hear about Denny and Sam as well. As you look forward to, and we've had a few questions about this texted in, as you look forward to having to replace these 3 OAs. I mean, that's the only guaranteed move that we know has to happen this year, is that we have 3 roster spots that would need to be filled. And what do you look for in an OA player as you seek to maybe replace OAs? I don't know if a general manager has ever just not filled OA spots. I know we've got 3 OA cards to use, 2 international cards, What do you look for as you look for players to kind of fill those empty spots now?
Well, Nick, first off, yeah, you can just have one or two or three. You just can't have more than three after January 10th. You're allowed to start the year with five, but come October 10th, I think it is, you have to get down to four, and then you can have four from then right through to January 10th, and then you have to get down to three. So yeah, you can have less, but you can't have more. But what we look for, you just basically look for that natural fit. Is it, do you have three 19-year-old defensemen and one or two overage defensemen? Well, if that's the case, maybe you don't need both overage defensemen. Maybe you don't need any overage defensemen, right? So yeah, like it's hard to say until you really get a grasp on what your team is going to probably look like. We still have the U18 draft tomorrow. We're hoping to get a good player or maybe two. I mean, it's nice to just have one for sure. We've got 2 European picks to try to grab and bring in. So that's something that we have to look at. So you're gonna be able to add some players, and then you look at the draft we just had. Are any of those kids going to be able to come in and really light the league on fire? It's hard to say. If I was a betting man, I would probably say no, but you don't have to look too far down the road to see Colby Barlow score 30 goals as a 16-year-old. So, I would never say never, right? But
absolutely,
as far as the overages go, we've got 6 that we can draw from this year, and we'll have to look at them as we move forward.
Excellent. Well, very, very good to hear, and appreciate Lisa Murdoch and texting in that question. Great question, Lisa. Make sure you guys continue to text in your questions. Lisa is now entered to win this jersey behind me. If you want to be entered in, you can make sure you text in questions or email them into the information here at the bottom of the screen, and you'll be entered to win that signed Owen Sound Attack jersey behind me. Well, Dale, as we kind of continue to look forward to next year, I know there's lots of excitement, and sometimes good excitement, sometimes nervous excitement for the coming year. And it looks like there's options, I guess, in front of you. I mean, there's lots to do, and I don't want you to reveal any of your plans or your cards. I'd like us to have a good go at this. So. I'm wondering, like, as a general manager, I mean, from my perspective, it looks like there could be two, most common options would be one, sort of retaining every player that we can retain and then filling in the extra spots with some new players, whether they're traded for or drafted. And then there's kind of that other path of, well, we've got some players that have value, and, perhaps you move them and, create a kind of a superpower team in a following year. I mean, it never works out exactly that way, but sort of these two options, not for this coming year, but what would a general manager have to go through to sort of decide between paths like this? Like what would some reasons be for picking one over the other, and how does sort of like team momentum play into a decision like that?
Well, I think you just answered your own question. Because that is really team momentum is the one thing that I don't like to do. I don't think you get any value in making trades over the summer. So do I want to do that? I can easily tell you absolutely no. If we just talked about the overages, we have 6 overages. I really don't want to have 6 overages come to camp. I probably don't even want to have 5 come to camp. So if one of them or 2 of them call me and say, hey, you know what, I'd like to get moved. If I feel like it's something that we can do and facilitate a deal like that, then we'll probably do that. But I don't want to make any other trades, because I think you can do it hastily, and then all of a sudden you'll be sitting there come the end of, say, October, November, going, you know what, I wish I had this, or I wish I had that, and then you turn the page and you go, shoot, that was what we just moved away in July, right? So I don't really want to do that, but but it's like you said, as the season starts, as we move forward, I have 30 cards to deal with. If we start the season with 22 players, I've got a bunch of cards that I can utilize and make things happen as we move forward. And that would be probably, or even through training camp when you get an idea and you see what you have. So I think the team kind of lays it out for us, when we're looking at it. Are we going to be as good as we think, or do we need help here? If you move this player, could you bring in that player? And that's kind of how that would work out.
Excellent.
I appreciate that. I mean, really, these are questions just for my own curiosity. I've never really, fully understood, why some teams will take that moment and they'll try a rebuild, and then you'll see a team that you think is in a similar position and they'll hold on, and all of a sudden both teams are forces to be reckoned with. So it seems like there's really never a right or wrong answer, but I appreciate your professionalism in that. That's great. And we've got a few minutes to go here, and something that I was hoping you'd be able to kind of enlighten us to as well is, there will be a couple of A's on the jerseys missing with this new crowd here moving up and on. Of course, Ethan and Sam both wearing an A, no longer coming back to the OHL, having graduated. What is it that you as a general manager look for in players to bring into captaincy? And is it ever a time we've seen in the NHL where people will trade and bring in players and put them into a captaincy role right away? Do you prefer one method or the other, kind of we'll call it homegrown talent, someone you bring in and you raise up and then they're in a captain position? Or is there value in bringing people in and placing them in that role?
Well, I think the preferred method would be homegrown, right? Mm-hmm. And part of that is that they have a vested interest in what is going on, what's been going on, what's in the community. All of those things come into play. Now, you can certainly trade for some unbelievable individuals, but I think if you bring them in and then you throw them into those leadership roles, sometimes it's almost trying to put a square peg in a round hole. They might be okay with where they were, but they may have been in that situation where they've been there for 4 years and know all the ins and outs about whatever team it is, say Barrie, and then they come to Owen Sound and they only know 6 players on the team. So it's a little bit different dynamics going in. I would rather, if that was the case, I would rather just leave it and not even give somebody the letter or the captaincy and just see how it plays out over time. They may ultimately be the guy, but rushing to judgment, I think you might shoot yourself in the foot if it doesn't work out, or they might not be the quite that person or leader that you think that they are.
I think through all this conversation, one thing is very clear, and that's I'm very glad I don't have your job. This sounds like a lot to have to take care of. I mean, I know that you're just scraping the surface with a lot of these things, like the ins and outs of running a team. It's something that I guess the comfier the armchair gets, sometimes we at home think we can do the job. But I think it's pretty clear that that's something that obviously you've grown as a skill to be able to know these ins and outs over the years. So definitely appreciate that. One last hard-hitting question here for you. And as you know, my hard-hitting questions sometimes aren't as hard-hitting. Will we next year potentially see, this is the only thing that I'll ask you to kind of look forward to, an intermission race between Cubby and yourself?
Maybe on the ice.
I can tell you, that would absolutely be a no. I've been on the ice. I think this year I went on the ice twice at practice, and I was 3 times last year. So no, I don't go on the ice very often. I'm certainly not going to go on the ice running around. I would definitely go on the ice and skate, but not that I would do that against Cubby.
That is fair. Maybe we'll have to get Cubby on a pair of skates, and we'll ask you that question again another time.
Now, I'll throw this out. Now, maybe if it was for charity, maybe if it was for charity and there was enough money involved, I might be able to race Cubby.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll have to.
I'll throw that at you, or if anybody's listening that wants to sort of grab that.
If there anyone looking to, step into ownership a little bit or help raise some funds here for, we'll keep that in the back of our minds here. And you've got the contact info is on the screen, so make sure you guys are calling in, and we'll figure something out. We'll have to figure something out. That's great.
Something I kind of thinking a little bit about this production side, I really liked this past year. I think it might have been around Christmas or just after Christmas, where the game day production team, they started to lower the lights and things like that in the arena during player intros, and it really just put on a special feeling there in the Bayshore. I mean, for yourself, you've been to probably every arena in all of Ontario, I would imagine, at this point in your career. Is there, what kind of on that production side, does it impact the team at all? Like, is there a little bit of extra fire in their belly? Like, let's say they've got really cool jerseys. Like, I remember the guys when they were taking the photos for the Grays jerseys, and they said, these look cool, like we're excited to wear these. Are things like that, do they impact kind of the motivation or the excitement of a team to step out on the ice at all?
Yeah, I believe it does, because you mentioned about just even dimming the lights. And now in fairness, we've only been able to do that since we went to the LED bulbs. So quite honestly, the old gas bulbs that we had before, or whatever they were, you'd need about 8 minutes for them to warm up to get to any brightness so that we could play. So that's changed, so we can do that. But so whether it's that, you mentioned about the jerseys. I know the kids love to wear the black jerseys. I don't think we wear the black jerseys enough, and they love the black jerseys. And but the gray jerseys, they were special. I knew they would be special. I've wanted this since probably, the first time I sat down and ate at the Boot and the Blade, and I could read the history about it, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, those were special. But even the music, the interaction of the music, and you go to some rinks and they really, really get it hopping. And I would love to see, and I don't know the difference from what we have to what other venues have, but I'd love to go to a venue that really gets the place rocking and see what it is that they do. Do you know what I mean? Like really, really throw ourselves into it and say, hey, like, what are you playing and why are you playing it at this time? Because those are all reasons of why you do it. Even replays. Mm-hmm. I might even phone the league to find out exactly what we can replay, penalty, goals, I don't know what it is.
Excellent.
That's all great to hear. I mean, really appreciate your candidness here in the answers. I know it's never easy to go on live TV for an hour and be vulnerable and talk about the team, but with 30 seconds left, just want to say thank you, and we're looking forward to the Owen Sound Attack and everything that they have to bring us next year. We're looking forward to that. Make sure you guys send in any questions that you want to get involved in this jersey giveaway. Season's tickets are on sale now. Thank you for watching Attack Wrap on Rogers TV. We'll be back in 2 weeks with our final episode. Make sure you get those questions in. I'm Nick Kennedy here on Rogers TV with Attack Wrap, and we'll see you next time.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
These days at your local Legion, we're marching to the beat of a different drum. On a mission to support veterans, to have fun, and to welcome everyone to our ranks. You don't have to be a veteran to join the Legion. And as a member, you'll join thousands of others serving our veterans, our communities, and our country. Oh yeah, and our Member Perks program will save you thousands on shopping, dining, products, and services across the country. Join us at legion.ca.
Everyone wants to know about everything Blue Jays.
Blair and Barker know what's up.
Over under an 86.5 wins.
I'm going to go over.
What's the story on Blue Jay Central?
Jamie, this